The Oracle of Luna is a podcast with me, Bridget Engels, as your host. Here we have conversations with real live, present-day goddesses who are actively and courageously doing their magical work in the world. Each episode is a bewitching journey with relevant discussions on topics such as Wiccan pagan spirituality, writing, culture, magical practices, art, ritual, and the craft in its many forms. Hi, and welcome to the Oracle of Luna podcast with Bridget Engels. Here we have our guest, Jhenah Telyndru. She is an author, priestess, and she runs and founds the Sisters of Avalon. Welcome, Jhenah.
Hello, Bridget. Thank you. So glad to be here.
Now, I'm just wondering, Jhenah, since you are on the East Coast, how's everything going there?
Well, we're waiting for Storm Izzy to hit here, so we've been cold, and we're prepared to spend the weekend inside. So, hope everybody listening is safe and has weathered the storm by the time you hear this.
Okay, well, I wish you luck with that winter weather, and I'm just going to jump right in. How you are a prolific priestess, author of several books, and you founded the Sisters of Avalon. But I was curious as to how the role of priestess came about for you, and what does this entail?
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess I've always been called to ancient religions. I loved mythology as a child and a very precocious reader. And I remember wishing that I was a that I had lived in ancient times so that I could worship Athena, so that I could worship Artemis. And so that stayed with me throughout my childhood. And then I really got into Arthurian mythos, and very precocious reader, but again, loved the Myths of Avalon, all of the different kinds of novelizations of the Arthurian tradition.
Uh-huh.
But I always thought it was something from the past. And then when I was about 16, I discovered the Women's Spirituality book by Diane Stein. And I was just floored by the idea that there were people who were worshiping goddesses and serving as priestesses in today's world. And so that really lit a spark within me. And through the years, I participated in several different pagan traditions, in priestessing roles. But the Sisterhood of Avalon was founded in 1995, and it really switched my perspective on what it means to be a priestess. For me, priestessing is an action. It's a verb. It is what we do. And what we learn from the lore of Avalon is that there are many ways of being a priestess. And so it feels like it's part of an identity. It's part of a service to the divine, a service to ourselves, and a service to our community. And so that's how we come to the idea of priestess. And that's been my joy, to be priestessing in service to my sisters, to the gods. Yeah.
Did you always know you were Wiccan, or did you, like many of us, grow up with a religion in our family of origin?
Well, I was raised Roman Catholic, so that
too.
was part of that sense of. I loved Mary. I loved the women saints. I was just drawn to the female divine. But again, I always thought it was just something of the past until I discovered, that paganism was alive and well. So I started off as a Dianic Wiccan. I took initiation in a Gardnerian coven, and then I found a women's group that was very Celtic centered, and it just kind of went from there. So I had a longing for it, but didn't know that it existed.
Okay. Did you grow up in like a rural setting, or in the
urban setting?
I grew up in Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
yes, so very, very urban.
Uh-huh. And did you go to school in New York? And or how did the idea of Wiccanism and Celtic mythology, how did that gel? Did you find a coven or a circle and then
Well, it's interesting that you ask. So I lived in Brooklyn, and I used to go to the Magical Child in Manhattan. And this was back in the mid 80s. So there was no internet. And
yeah.
I happened to be talking really briefly with Herman Slater, who is
Mhm.
the owner, and he pointed me towards a bulletin board, and there was a coven in in Brooklyn. And so I took a little tour of sheet, and I called them, and so I was initiated into the coven. It was a Wiccan coven. It was co-ed. It was very traditional. I felt very blessed to find people to work with. Again, no internet, no other way of connecting except billboards. But I knew that Wicca itself wasn't exactly where I wanted to be, but so grateful for the experience of it. I was always really centered in service, I guess, to the divine feminine. Now I say that, but I do have devotional relationships with some other uh, male gods as well. But from where I was at that point, I knew that being woman-centered was where I wanted to be.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Was there a specific person that might have influenced you on your journey?
Well, as I said, I think I was in that transition stage between the political women's spirituality movement of the 60s and 70s. So I read, Mary Daly and Merlin Stone and Monica Sue, all of those
Mm,
mothers really of the goddess tradition. So they really inspired me on the onset. But as I moved and grew in my work and in my devotion, I found that as I got more into Celtic spirituality, specifically from a culturally rooted place, so closer to Reconstructionism, really, than Wicca specifically.
mm,
I felt myself being influenced by the lore, by the myths, by the folk practices, and so that became my guide. Um, so yeah, so I guess there's two different parts of me developing in two different, I guess, stages of my life, and one still influences the other, absolutely. But
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And since you're very interested in Celtic mythology, I'm wondering if I'm looking at I have the Mythic Moons of Avalon, which I'm
Mhm.
reading, and it says here that you have a MA in Celtic Studies from the University of Wales.
That's correct. Yes.
Um, so why Wales? Why what is your interest in Welsh mythology or Welsh goddesses? And I'm just curious as
Hmm. Well, the Celtic British traditions are the ones that I resonate most with, or the Brythonic traditions. So that includes Wales, Cornwall, Brittany. Um, but yeah, Arthurian tradition has its origins in Welsh mythos, and that was really the first connection for me. And I since grew in devotional relationships to the goddesses of the Mabinogi
Mhm.
and to the goddess Caradwen. So yeah, that's where my soul home is
Yeah.
in it's in Wales, and the landscape is just um, draped with the lore and the mythos that dwells there so strongly. So yeah, it's a very strong soul tie.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
you resonate so strongly. It's a pull for you. It sounds like.
Hmm.
Um, so it's interesting because I was just thinking about Wiccanism here in the U.S. and how it differs from maybe British Wiccanism,
Hmm.
where there's a tradition of gosh, the landscape having such a being playing such a huge role in the fact that and resonating with the British tradition. How do you see the U.S. Developing in an Avalonian path? I'm just curious. Is there a big interest in wanting to be British or wanting to be part of the Arthurian legend or part of Avalon? I'm just trying to. trying to understand the pull. I certainly love the myths of Avalon and the whole series. Read all those, and I just think that here in the U.S. it's a little bit different because we're landscape is so different, and we're a newer country, and there's not that history and mythos. So I'm just I guess I'm just curious how maybe the Sisters of Avalon developed here in the U.S. and if how it differs from maybe British Wiccanism.
So that's a really great question, and it's something that I definitely think a lot about. I think it's an interesting thing because, and I will say that the Sisters of Avalon was started here in the U.S. and the majority of our members are from North America, and but we have members from all over the world. That said, when we're in the landscape, so one of the things that we do in the sisterhood is we host pilgrimages to sacred sites because there is something about that living landscape to go into it and experience it and bring it back with you. But not everybody has that, opportunity to do that. So I think for me and for us who are here, it's about let's put it this way. There are many doors into the other world. There are many ways to connect with Avalon, to connect with these divinities and these traditions. And when you're living there, it's all around you. But when you aren't, you need to find a different way in.
Right.
And for me, that has been through the lore. That has been through growing relationships, devotional relationships with these goddesses by knowing their stories, by studying their myths, by working with their plants and their herbs and connecting energetically with them, as opposed to standing on the lakes on the shore of Caradwyn's Lake in reality, to journey there within ourselves, the inner pathway.
Exactly. And I feel like maybe that the Avalonian tradition that your particular path is more about healing and transformation maybe than the other types of Avalonian traditions.
Well, there are, and thank you for saying that, there are a lot of different groups and traditions that are inspired by Avalon. And there are a lot of, it means a lot of things to a lot of people, but we draw upon this idea of Avalon as the island of healing, as the place where Arthur went at the end of his days to restore himself to await Britain's need. So we seek transformation, and healing is part of that. We seek growth, we seek authenticity, and all of the things tie into this idea, and it's very rooted in the lore of what women want most, and that is their sovereignty. And the idea of sovereignty is so core to a lot of Celtic traditions, and it passes into Arthurian tradition as well. And so that is what our path is about. It's about seeking and obtaining sovereignty. And our definition of it is fully conscious self-determination, to know the lay, because we're not in that sacred landscape, and perhaps Avalon never had a physical landscape, but the idea of that inner landscape, to understand the inner landscape, the places that are in bounty, the places that are the wasteland, to accept and acknowledge all of it, and to achieve a sense of wholeness, that is the work of sovereignty, to be sovereign over our inner landscapes, to come into partnership and relationship with that goddess within us, the sovereignty goddess.
Yeah. And also to work with our shadow selves.
Oh, that's a huge part of it. Again, that's the valley of the, as opposed to the height of the mountain and the valley of the shadow. Absolutely. You need to know, you need to claim, and you need to embrace all parts of ourselves. Does it mean that we shouldn't strive to change? Does it mean that we shouldn't seek to heal? Absolutely not. But there are things that are part of our shadow selves that will never change, that we have to carry with us. And we need to love those parts of ourselves just the same. We need to comport ourselves with compassion, to carry ourselves forward with as much grace as possible. And that requires us to know those shadows, to understand where they begin and end, to hopefully understand where they came from, and to seek ways to be sovereign despite them.
Right. And right, to work with our wounds, and then to kind of use those wounds actually as a source of healing and transformation.
And
To
that's the other piece of it, right? We go into the shadow, but we also embrace and celebrate the light, the parts of ourselves that are conscious, kind
Yeah.
of moving that energy from the cauldron of the shadow and use it to create the torque of the sovereign self, the external, that, actualized self. So it's both, it's light and dark. The Celts had a lot of duality in their cosmology: this world, the other world, night, dark, dark half of the year, light half of the year. And we're just the same. We're just the same.
Yes. So let's see, you've got a couple books out, one on Rhiannon, one on Blodeuwedd. Are those particular goddesses that you associate with or are inspired by?
Mm-hmm. So we work with 5 goddesses in the Avalonian tradition, and Blodeuwedd and Rhiannon are 2 of them. They both are found in the Mabinogi, which is a story cycle from medieval Wales, but it's the earliest written versions of these tales. And so my books on Blodeuwedd and Rhiannon are devotional works. They bring together all of the lore that we have about them, all of the, what we know from writings and manuscripts. It delves into the cultural contexts of the time so we can understand the myths better. And it gives us ways to be in devotional relationships with these goddesses. So while it is inspired by, and I have been in devotional relationships with these goddesses for almost 30 years, while it is inspired by that work, it is not specific. They're not specifically Avalonian. So anyone who has an interest in these goddesses can pick them up and find them to be hopefully good resources on their journey to being in relationship. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, do you also work with Mother Maiden Crone, who's in the moon phases, and draw upon lunar cycles with your work?
We do draw upon lunar cycles. We don't do the Maiden Mother Crone. That really wasn't a Celtic thing. Robert Graves kind of it created that, and I found it to be very poetic and beautiful. And I love the that archetype of the triple goddess in that way. But Celtic triple goddesses are usually 3 aspects of the same divinity. So so how we work with the moons is that we associate the energies. We work through each moon in the year for us holds a resonance with an aspect of one of our goddesses' stories, with an herb that holds a similar energetic quality, and that so it's that particular moon of the year. So it really goes through the energetic cycle from a lunar perspective. So we do work with the moon and the phases of the moon, but not necessarily in that triple goddess kind of way.
Yeah. It's interesting that you draw on your plant allies with the moon phases. I'm really interested in knowing, are these plants specific to the Welsh landscape, or are they
They're
British?
all native. They're all native Welsh plants.
Oh,
Wales actually was very, very famous in the medieval period for the physicians of Myddfai, which were these court herbalists and physicians, and they were famous all throughout Europe for their herbal formulary. So, and the story of the physicians is tied into the Lady of the Lake, a different Lady of the Lake than the one that we know from Arthurian tradition, but they received this formulary from the other world, from an otherworldly figure. So, so the herbs in here, so the system itself is neoteric. I created it. But the information that it uses is all based in lore. So I just created a way of organizing it. So each of these herbs, so the herbal qualities are traditional, and the energies are traditional, and all of that, but the association with that particular moon is completely created. So just to clarify, so so you won't find that in ancient Wales, but it's based in Welsh tradition. And again, these are all native plants, and they are amazing herbal allies to assist us in connecting with the energies of the aspects of the goddess, this part of their tale. Because just really quickly, the beauty of working with them in this way is that the stories of the goddesses of Wales were written down in the Christian period. Unlike ancient Greece and Rome, where they are still in their highest divinity form, they've been kind of reduced in stature to queens or, magical women. So, so the stories are much more down to earth, right? There's a lot of, they're about domestic violence, they're about child loss, right? There are things that we can all resonate with. They're not high cosmological things, although some of that underscores the symbolism. Anyway, all of that to say is that we can identify with some of the things in their stories. We can identify with their challenges. We can identify with their triumphs. We can look to see, how did Arianrhod handle this situation, and what does that teach me? What can I learn from that? How can she guide me moving forward? And so it helps to build relationship through an understanding of the story.
And it helps to build sovereignty within women.
Agreed.
Is Crethalod in your pantheon at all? Because is that a different name for Lodowid? I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it correctly.
That's okay. I can't pronounce her name that you just said. So she is she's kind of she's not an aspect of Lodowith, but I can see where you would associate that connection. And we do talk about her a bit as part of because. One of the things that I talk about in the Blodeuwedd book is that Blodeuwedd is a seasonal sovereignty goddess. And Creladad, and I'm definitely mispronouncing her name, is, I'm struggling. I've been trying to learn Welsh for a long time, and but that is one of the ones. It's just not, I can't wrap my tongue around it. So please forgive me. But she also kind of holds that seasonal sovereignty energy, that there are these two suitors, one a solar hero, one a otherworldly champion wanting her. So she's similar to her in that she has a similar function, but I wouldn't say that they're exactly the same.
Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like maybe in Celtic, also the Norse paganism, that there's so many varieties within one goddess and or god. They have many faces and they change. It seems like they change. They're shapeshifters. They change. They have many guises, many different myths, different stories. It's hard to know, right? Because really there was no written word back then. And unless, those stories, those myths were carried by the bards, right?
That's right. Yep, they were preserved in oral tradition and then eventually written down. And I think what's interesting is that I think that Celtic divinities and perhaps Norse divinities as well, but that's not my area of experience, is that they're more complicated than, it's hard to say. I think, I know when I first came into paganism, it was like, oh, Aphrodite is the goddess of love, and Zeus is the god of thunder, and, et cetera, and so on. So there's like one or two attributes, but really these divinities are so complex.
Very complex.
And you can't, and it's the same with the Greek gods, don't get me wrong. There's much more to Aphrodite than being the goddess of love. It's very reductionist, but Celtic, and I think in the West, we're used to that kind of paradigm of divinity that we have from the Greco-Roman traditions. Yeah. But the Celtic gods are much more complex as well. You can't, 4 out of the 5 goddesses that I work with are mothers, for example, right? There's a lot of overlapping areas of interest, I guess, or you know what I mean? But I put it this way, characteristics or the areas of their, their purview, what they're the goddess of, or all of that.
Yeah.
So it's not so cut and dry. And how I look at it is that it's not so much about, because I think all divinities are at their core divine. I think they're all individuals and separate, but there's something that makes them all gods. And what that means to me is that I can get whatever information, whatever guidance that I'm seeking. I can be in service. It doesn't matter who the god is necessarily, because they can reflect back to me what I need to know. I don't need to find, if I'm going to be traveling, who's the god of, travel? I can ask the divinities that I already have relationships with to please, keep me safe on my travel. Does that kind of make sense? So it's kind of like
Yeah.
work with the divinities that you're in relationship with and don't worry so much about, but I need to know something about,
Yeah.
my health. And it's not a goddess of healing. It's okay. They
Yes.
know the things.
Yeah, it's working with the goddesses. I've in my goddess meditations that I've written, and also in my Circled Luna guided meditation is a big part of our rituals. And
Mm.
um, sometimes I get questions before the ritual or even during the ritual, like, "Hey, I'm not getting a feeling. I'm not getting a sense, or how do I connect better?" Um, and it seems like you have to be open to the connection first.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's not maybe the right goddess, or it may not be happening right now, but later on you might get a visitation or some kind of feeling or connection. But I think that's kind of a big thing in connecting with any divinity, any
Hmm.
feminine archetype, is just to really be open to their
Yes, I agree. And if it's your first experience, if it's your fifth experience, it takes time sometimes to build a relationship and to know, oh, that's what that feeling is, or oh, I realize,
Yeah,
oh, I see, that's what you. Oh, I think it's an unfolding as you enter, as your relationship deepens. I agree. So I think part of the work of the ritualist is to do their best to, you know, create a ritual that assists people who are not necessarily in devotional relationship with the gods that you're working with. How are other ways that you can help them connect? What
right,
are other things you can do in ritual to open them up? And things like burning herbs associated with them, chants associated with them, symbols associated with them. All of these things help open those doors of perception.
right. Absolutely. Especially the chanting and the
Mm-hmm.
trance work. I find that really key to the connection. But it is hard to do that, like, for the first time, is have that connection
Mm-hmm.
and to quiet the mind
That's right.
to get to that place. And and that kind of goes, that's why I'm intrigued by the healing and transformation aspect
Mm.
of the Avalonian tradition, and going within and going deep into the shadow self and working through those the cycles. um, but anyway, so in the Sisterhood of Avalon, let's see, what do you actually, as far as rituals go, is it a specific type of ritual? Did you create the ritual? Is it, how would you describe a ritual within the Sisterhood of Avalon in
Well,
2022?
in 2022. Well, we have no rituals left from Celtic times. So everything that we do is about, how can we create a connection? How can we build a bridge between
Exactly.
the participants and the divine? And so it really depends. I mean, we have in-person ritual, we have solitary ritual, we facilitated rituals at festivals and conferences. What basically, how the rituals are formed and how they are created is that, again, it's informed by the myth, right? So I look at mythology, the myths, the legends, and I see within them something I call a mythic map. How do you get to Avalon? Well, you have to call the barge, you need to get in the boat, you need to clear the mists, you need to receive the sword, and you need to get to the shore, right? So there's a literal map kind of laying out for
A
you.
journey.
And so what is a journey? So you can take that literal journey. I'm going to imagine, we call it an Imrama, which is an Irish term, but it's about a wonder journey into the other world. Otherworldly islands is a big part of Celtic tradition. So Avalon is squarely in that, um, you know, genre of writing and myth. But anyway, but it's also, we have to go take a journey over water. The water is the unconscious, right? So it teaches us to go within. We have to part the myths. Well, what are the myths? The myths are the illusions that we have about ourselves, the things that make us feel unworthy, the things that prevent us from becoming all that we are, our fears, our hurts, those things. How do we move them aside, even for the moment, so that we can proceed on our journey? Receiving the sword of truth, the sword of the weapon of sovereignty, right? We've earned that peace that helps us to keep the mists at bay so that we can attain the island. And the thing that we know about Avalon from myth is that it's a place where all things grew of its own accord. No one needed to work to have food. It was a place of healing. It was a place of long life and eternal youth. It was a place of learned women in service to the people there, right? So there's the ritual, and it is this internal path. So to find Avalon within, and because she's in the other world, right? And one way through to the other world is through the unconscious. So it is no less accessible to us in the here and now to connect. And the more you take that journey to Avalon, the more you pass into the other world, the easier it becomes, the clearer it becomes, the stronger the bridge is, and the more you can learn, the more you can be on the Holy Island.
Beautiful. And it sort of parallels to the Arthurian legend or the seeking of the Holy Grail.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about that before we started, how the symbol of the Grail is actually the heroine's journey to seek herself and her soul. That's what the Grail symbolizes, and that's kind of how it ties in with the Avalon. Is
it does. So one of the earliest Arthurian stories that we have is from it's a Welsh poem that's called The Spoils of Annwn. And Annwn is the word for the other world. And in it, Arthur and his men go on a journey by boat over water, and they are seeking the cauldron of the chief of Annwn. And that is a cauldron of testing, and it's a cauldron of abundance, and it is warmed by the breath of 9 maidens. So 9 maidens, 9 muses, they kindle this cauldron. And so that is one of the originators of what becomes the Grail quest. They needed to seek the cauldron. Men seek it because it is, well, men have to come into relationship. We all have to come into relationship with our unconscious side, with our receptive side, being in relationship with the divine feminine. So it's not just I think the journey goes both ways. Consciousness seeking union with the unconscious, right? But it is that vessel of sovereignty that he's seeking, and that is the myth that later moves to inform the stories of the Grail, and it is very tied into these early Celtic stories, these early Welsh stories of sovereignty, seeking sovereignty in the other world. And the 9 maidens there, and the 9 sisters of Avalon. So there's a resonance. There's a strong resonance.
Yes, I'd say so. Parallel. I just feel like going to Avalon is a heroine's journey, and you must embark on it if you are serious, and it's you want to be part of the myth, your own sovereign self. You have to undertake the heroine's journey to get there.
I agree.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I was wondering, when you began the book Avalon Within, had you been going on journeys to say the Chalice Well and certain places in Glastonbury? How did that research go for that book?
Yes. So I'd gone many times. My first journey there was back in 1991. And we bring pilgrims over because there is something about the Glastonbury. I mean, Glastonbury and Avalon have been associated with each other since the Middle Ages through Arthurian tradition. But I mean, whether or not it was ever Avalon, that's a whole discussion. But the landscape itself is very powerful. The springs, the white and red spring, the resonances of those energies, they transcend even religion. They transcend tradition. There's so many layers in that landscape. So yes, so going into those spaces, working with those places, working with the Tor, with Chalice Hill, with with the Red Spring, with the White Spring. It's a transformational landscape, and anyone who's gone there and anyone who spends any time there, it brings you. It shows you what you need to see. And sometimes that can be a difficult pill to swallow. But if you're consciously looking, it's a gift to help us to become that healed and sovereign person. This is what I need to see. This is what I need to work on.
They say there's several ley lines underneath.
That's right.
They're energetic highways. I thought that was I thought that was fascinating.
The Mary line and the Michael line, or the pagans call it the Merlin line and the Morgan line, and they connect. One is red and one is white, just like the springs, and they intersect on the side of the Tor. So yeah, it's a very potent place. Some people call it the heart chakra of the earth.
Yeah. So is that where what inspired you to being in Glastonbury? Was that an inspiration for your book, Avalon Within?
Well, I mean, an inspiration, it definitely informed aspects of it, because I saw in that external landscape a reflection of the internal landscape. So working with those energies, the energies of the Red Spring, has a resonance of an aspect of we call it the Avalonian cycle of healing. So parts of our own inner alchemy. So if we can access those energies, we can work with those energies, we can connect with those energies through journey. And the Red Spring, the White Spring, all of these whole particular resonances that open doors of understanding within us. So it's kind of mirroring that external landscape and reflecting it within us.
Yeah.
But it's only part of it, because it's also involved with the cycles of the seasons as well, and the agricultural cycle of the Celts. So again, just many doors that can open and provide access to the inner mysteries, really.
Yeah. And if you're seeking healing, one of the things you can do is go on a meditation or trance journey, and meet with the goddess, and do some shadow work and trance work. And then, I mean, I'm just saying from personal
experience. Absolutely. I mean, in Avalon Within, there are trance postures that are associated with each of the stations, which are associated with different parts of the landscape. There are layers of what's the word I'm looking for, of correspondence. But the trance postures emulates, it's a way of embodying that landscape feature. You become the Red Spring, you become the Tor, you become the island of Avalon. So it's part of that embodiment idea of as within, so without. And you can connect with the goddesses through those things as well. And in Mythic Moons of Avalon, there are journeys to each of the goddesses that we talk about there or work with there in their sacred landscapes. So in Wales. So Mythic Moons is Welsh centered in the landscape. Avalon Within is Glastonbury centered in the landscape.
Right. And then I see on your website that you have a trancing CD. Is that correct?
That is, yes. It's currently sold out. I've been exploring ways of digitize. I mean, it's making it available in digital way. But yes, it's a. But there is that, and there are some of the trance postures are in Avalon Within itself. But yeah.
Yeah, I would love to hear those. I guess maybe they'll be up on Spotify or.
Well, they're videos actually of the postures themselves. Yeah. So yeah, it's yeah.
Got it. Okay. So well, I'd love to see those at some point. Let me know when I can get those.
I will shout it from the mountain. Yes. I'm hoping to get those available again.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a fascinating discussion, and I would love to know about maybe what does the future hold for you? Are you do you have any upcoming plans? Maybe new books or workshops or sacred intensives or events?
I am finishing up the third book on Avalon for Llewellyn, and
wow!
So hopefully they'll be out end of the year, probably the first half of next year. So yeah, that I'm really excited about having that out there. COVID has kind of been a bummer
Yeah.
But we do a lot of virtual events. We have Avacon coming up in April. We do our Ninefold Festival, which is usually in person. So we've been doing Ninefold, I'm sorry, we've been doing Avacon online for almost 10 years. So even before COVID. But Ninefold, we switched to virtual. So that's our in-person festival. And we also have some online learning opportunities through the Coracle, where we have a lot of guests come and share their work. And we also feature a lot of sister authors and artists and musicians on the Coracle Live, which is free on Facebook. So we're trying to have some rich offerings to share in community. And if you want to know more about them, our Facebook group, Sisterhood of Avalon, just go there and join. We have, I'm also on all of the social medias, the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram.
Okay.
And yeah, so I'd love to connect with people if they want to learn more. But that's the best place to go to find out about more of our upcoming offerings.
And your website?
Yes, my website is ynysavalon.com, which is the Welsh for Island of Avalon. So it's YNYS. A is F as in Frank, ALLON.com.
Very good.
It's nice that it's unique, but it's also difficult to spell.
Yeah.
So, but once you have it, you have it.
Yeah, Welsh is a difficult language.
But so beautiful, so magical.
Yeah. All right, very good. It was so lovely speaking with you. And I just, I've been a fan for so long, and I just love the Avalonian tradition. I'm, a person who loves Celtic goddesses, so I align with Rhiannon and quite a bit. And anyway, I'll want to do a little bit more exploration and maybe delve into the Sisterhood of Avalon. So thank you very much for being on my show today.
Well, thank you so much. It's just been a true pleasure, and I really enjoyed this chat, and I look forward to staying in connection. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. May you walk with the goddess, and blessed be.
Blessings.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.